Welcome to video class. Now today we are going to discuss disease causing microorganisms in animals. Just like microorganisms cause disease in humans, in the same way they also cause disease in animals as well as in plants. First we will discuss disease that's caused in animals. Number 1 is foot and mouth disease. Foot and mouth disease of animals like cattle. This disease is caused by virus. So this is a viral disease. In this foot and mouth of the cattle is involved. That's why it's called foot and mouth disease. And the causative microorganism of foot and mouth disease is virus. Remember that. The cattle suffering from this disease get blisters. They get blisters on feet and mouth. So this is one of the disease that is caused by microorganisms in animals. Now second disease is called anthrax. Well, it's a dangerous disease. It is a dangerous disease which is caused by bacterium. Caused by bacterium. So we can say anthrax disease is a bacterial disease in animals. The causative microorganisms of anthrax disease is a bacterium, and the name of that bacteria is Bacillus anthracis. Remember that. This is the name of the bacteria which causes the disease called anthrax. And it was discovered by, his name was Robert Koch in 1876. Third disease that is caused by microorganisms in animals is, we call it aspergillosis. This disease especially is caused in poultry birds. And it is a fungus disease. We call it a fungal disease caused by fungus. Thus, aspergillosis is a fungal disease of animals. The causative microorganism of aspergillosis disease is a fungus. Remember that. So these were the three diseases that's caused in animals. Now let's discuss disease causing microorganisms in plants. In plants. Just like the diseases are caused in animals, in the same way, microorganisms also cause disease in plants. Number 1 is called rust of wheat. This is a plant disease. The causative microorganism of rust of wheat disease fungus. So we can say causative microorganism. is fungus. Causative means the microorganism which causes such disease. So the causative microorganism is fungus. The rust of wheat disease is transmitted through, and this is transmitted through, remember that, air and seeds. So if we will sow a seed which already has such type of disease, that means it can spread to other disease, other seeds, sorry, and in the same way it can spread through air. This means that the mode of transmission of the rust of wheat disease is air and seed. As the name suggests, the rust of wheat disease occur in wheat plants. So this disease occur in wheat plants. Next disease that is caused in plants, that is called citrus canker. This is a bacterial disease. That means disease is caused by bacteria. Bacteria. So the causative microorganism citrus canker disease are bacteria, and this disease is transmitted through air. So we can say the mode of transmission is the air. So the citrus canker disease occur in citrus trees such as, we can say, lemon, lime, orange, etc. So such type of disease can occur in citrus trees. So this was second disease that is caused in plants. Let's discuss third one. That's called yellow vein mosaic of bindi, or we can say okra. In Hindi we call it okra also. This is a viral disease. That means this is caused by virus. So the causative microorganism of this plant disease is virus. We call it the yellow vein mosaic of bindi. So this is caused through insects. That means through vector. Vector means the carrier of disease. So the mode of transmission is insect, or we can say vector. Vector. Thus the mode of transmission of yellow vein mosaic of bindi disease is insect. The disease of plants caused by microorganisms reduces yield and quality of various crops. And so, such disease can be controlled by use of certain chemicals. We call them insecticides, pesticides we use to kill such disease causing microorganisms. So, these were the diseases that were caused by microorganisms in plants as well as in animals. Now, let's discuss another question that is called food poisoning. What do you mean by food poisoning? What is food poisoning? Now, as we know, if the food is not covered properly, stored properly, or preserved properly, then it gets spoiled by the action of microorganism. Whether that microorganism will be bacteria or fungi, And the microorganisms that grow on our food sometimes produce toxic substances. So when they produce toxic substances, or we can say these were the poisonous substances, the food spoiled in this manner starts giving bad smell or bad taste. Its color may also change sometime. If such a food is eaten, it will lead to food poisoning. So we can say the disease, I will write here, the disease caused due to the presence of large number of microorganisms, whether bacteria or fungi in the food, or we can say, or due to the presence of toxic substances in the food formed by the action of microorganisms is called food poisoning. So, due to the presence of microorganisms or due to the presence of toxic substance which is released by the microorganisms that is present in the food called food poisoning. So, in short, we can say food poisoning occurs. We can also say the food poisoning occurs due to consumption of food poisoning occurs due to consumption of spoiled food. So, the major symptoms of food poisoning, if we say the major symptoms, what will be the major symptoms if a person is suffering from food poisoning? Number one, there will be vomiting. Patient will suffer from vomiting, diarrhea, pain in abdomen. In the same way, headache and fever. So these were the symptoms of food poisoning. And how food poisoning takes place or occurs, it occurs due to the consumption of spoiled food. Now let's discuss another question that's called preservation of food. Preservation of food. What is preservation of food? What do you mean by preservation of food? So we can say it is the process. I will write here the process in which the food materials are given a suitable physical or chemical treatment to prevent their spoilage is called is called food preservation. Sorry. So food preservation means how to preserve the food, and the process through which we preserve the food is called food preservation. So in this process we give both physical as well as chemical treatment to prevent the spoilage. And there are various different methods by which food can be preserved. Let us discuss those one by one. So, methods of preservation. Methods of preservation. Number one is preservation of food by sun drying. This is one of the method of preservation of food. So we can preserve the food by sun drying. So drying means removal of water from food material which are to be preserved. Sun drying reduces, or we can say sun drying reduces the water content of food material and makes them dry. Sun drying reduces the water content of food material and makes them dry. In the absence of moisture, the food does not get spoiled. So this is one of the method of, and what are the food materials which can be preserved through such process that we can preserve spinach, we can preserve methi leaves, we can preserve cauliflower and peas at home. So this is one of the method of preservation of food. Now let's discuss another method of preservation of food, that is preservation of food by heating. Preservation of food by heating. As we know, heating kills the microorganisms. Heating kills the microorganisms and prevent the spoilage of food. So some foods can be preserved. Some food can be preserved just by heating. For example, we boil milk to prevent it from spoilage. The main reason of boiling the milk is to prevent it from spoilage. When we heat the milk during boiling, then the food spoiling bacteria present in it gets killed. So in this way, we prevent the milk from spoilage. Third one is preservation of food by cooling. Cooling means by refrigeration. Low temperature inhibits the growth of bacteria. Or we can say the microorganisms. So the food spoilage bacteria do not grow and multiply in cold conditions. Thus, when food is kept in cold places, that is in the refrigerator, the food does not get spoiled easily. It remains fresh for much longer time. And the food materials like cooked food, or we can say cooked vegetables and pulses, fresh fruits, are kept in cool place like refrigerator to prevent their spoilage. Number four, number fourth method of preservation is preservation of food by deep freezing. Deep freezing. That means preservation of food by deep freezing means by excessive cold temperature below 0 degree centigrade. Deep freezing of food can be done by placing it in a freezer compartment. We can keep the food in freezer compartment. Nowadays we use freezers of our refrigerator. When the food is kept in deep freezer, whose temperature is much below, we can say 0 degree, below 0 degree, the food gets frozen. At the very low temperature in the deep freezer, the growth of food spoiling microorganisms is prevented. So in this way, we can prevent some foods from spoilage. Deep freezing method is used for the preservation of fish, meat, and their products, especially in Kashmir when we just want to preserve our wazwan, which is our food, main food item in marriage ceremonies or in functional occasions. So we can preserve those food items or food materials through deep freezing. That's why we just hire refrigerators for that. So next one is preservation of food by common salt. Preservation of food by common salt. Common salt prevents the growth of food spoilage microorganisms, due to which it is used to preserve a number of food materials. Common salt has been used to preserve meat and fish for ages. So, common salt nowadays, common salt is used to preserve fruits such as raw mangoes, raw mangoes, lemon, we can say amla, and we preserve such items in the form of pickles. So, this was another method of food preservation. In the same way, we can preserve food by sugar also. Preservation of food by sugar, and as we know, sugar is used as preservative in making jams and jellies, because sugar reduces the moisture content from the fruits, which inhibits the growth of microorganisms. So this was another method of preservation. In the same way, we can preserve food by oil and vinegar. Preservation by oil and vinegar. Next one is preservation using chemical as preservatives. And as far as the chemicals that is used as preservative are sodium metabisulfate, sodium benzoate, and citric acid. And these two, sodium metasulfate and sodium benzoate, are used as a preservative in jams, jellies, juices, squash, so as to save them from spoilage. And citric acid is used as preservative in confectionery sweets. This is used in confectionery sweets. And in the same way, there are other methods of preservation that's called preservation of food by pasteurization, and in which we say the pasteurization is a method in which is used in big milk dairies. And in this process, milk is preserved by heating it to about 70 degrees centigrade, or I will write here, preservation of food by pasteurization. Now, the method of pasteurization is used in big milk dairies where milk is heated milk is heated to about 70 degrees centigrade for 15 to 30 seconds to kill most of the bacteria present in it. And in next step, this hot milk is cooled very quickly at low temperature. After heating it for 15-30 seconds at 70 degree temperature, it's quickly cooled to a low temperature to kill or to prevent any remaining bacteria from growing further. And this milk is stored in cold refrigerators. So pasteurized milk can be consumed without boiling because it is free from harmful microorganisms. That's why in the markets the pasteurized milk that we buy in the form of packets, that is safe to drink directly because it's free from microorganisms, because the process which is involved in it is the pasteurization process. And in the same way, there is a last method of preservation of food is by packing in airtight packets. As we know, these days dry fruits and even vegetables are sold in sealed airtight packets to prevent the attack of microorganisms. This helps to dry fruits and vegetables to remain unspoiled for a longer time. So this was uh, we will conclude today's lecture with these topics. That's why today we discussed preservation of food, and we discussed food poisoning, and today we discuss the disease causing microorganism in plants as well as in animals. And there is one last question in this chapter that we will discuss in next lecture. And that's all for today. Fi aman Allah.